Hi, Chris. Welcome to the
Hey,
Authentic Human Podcast. How you doing?
doing well. How are you, Michelle?
I'm great, thank
Good.
you. So, how did you hear about the podcast?
Yeah, I was lucky enough to see one of your YouTube videos,
Okay.
um, and have been kind of like, as I told Ashley, I've been kind of steeped in spirituality for my whole life. So I saw it and I was like, oh, this is very interesting, and watched a couple of videos and checked out your website. Here we are.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah,
So then it's a choose your own adventure kind of experience today. And so, yeah, you can choose to either have me go ahead and just start sharing from your soul and whichever universal beings are ready, or you can ask specific questions and we can do like a Q&A type of conversation.
sure. Love it. Let's just see what comes up. I'm excited to just kind of go wherever this leads today.
Awesome. Okay. So, let me see. Um, okay. So, can you tell me a little bit about yourself? I want to get the energy moving a little bit
Sure.
because there's not a lot of openness. So, if you start talking, a lot of the time what will happen is your energy will start to open up and then
Sure.
there's more I can see in. So, yeah, tell me a bit
Sure.
about where you are in your journey.
Yeah, so I have, as I mentioned earlier, I've been kind of like steeped in spirituality from a very young age. I grew up in a church where connection to spirit was something to be felt and encouraged,
Yep.
and Jesus was a person more so to be viewed as a teacher, more so than the sort of savior of humanity, died for your sins, that kind of a thing. And so got my start really with that foundation. And then
And how do
through,
can I ask you how you feel about that? Is that your belief as well?
yeah, I think in terms of, yeah, in terms of a guiding principle, I think it is. Yeah, I think that Christ consciousness really is something that everybody has access to. And I think that Jesus really was pointing that out more so than saying, follow these rules, do these specific things, and you'll get into heaven. I think he was more so pointing to heaven as a state of being rather than a place that you go after you die, if that
Yes.
makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. 100%. Awesome. Thank you.
Sure. And so, with that sort of foundational starting points, um, didn't really have a lot of interest in like any other esoteric, like Eastern philosophies, really. I was kind of meditating a little bit here and there as a youngster, kind of dropping into that state um, at random, not really intentioning it to happen at all. Um, and so, through a chance encounter with a Buddhist nun in Boston in 2004, I heard about this thing called enlightenment. And I didn't have any idea what it meant at the time. Um, but it kind of like set me on fire a little bit, and was like, oh, okay, this is interesting and different. Like, what is that really? So that kind of, I started like doing some book study, reading as much as I could about Zen and enlightenment, and reading Alan Watts and Shunryu Suzuki, and sort of like the pillars of the spiritual genre, I guess. And so was meditating, that kind of like meditating pretty seriously for 4 or 5 years. Once I realized that book study wasn't getting me anywhere in terms of my own recognition and spiritual path. And so meditating pretty regularly, consistently for a period of years. And I was in college one morning and the world just kind of like blew open for me. Um, I had a surge of energy in my body, and then everything kind of exploded, and I was presented with emptiness, and everything. I was like looking around, everything looked the same, but it was all very different, and I could kind of see uh, the background substrata. It felt like of everything beyond the words, beyond the sort of oh, that's a tree. It was just nothing appearing as that, or that's a building that it's actually nothing appearing as that. That was a very interesting day. um, for that one day, almost 20 years ago.
Yep.
And since then, I have kind of, I mean, in the moment, that felt really whole and complete, and I was like, okay, cool. I'm just gonna move on, not look into anything else really further. Now, 16 years later, I'm like, okay, I have a family, I'm a householder, but I'm being drawn back into this to resolve or kind of like figure out the rest because it feels like something is unfinished
Yeah.
in that regard.
That's
Um,
fascinating. So can I ask you
mhm.
when when you had, okay, so I love how you said chance encounter with a nun, first of all, because there's no such thing as chance encounters, and
Yeah.
yet we know that's the only way you can explain it, right? And it's like, oh, okay, so divine interruption, I sort of look at it as, and
Mm,
you've had a number of these throughout your story.
mhm.
Um, and it's like a course correct, right? It's like our soul's kind of going, oh, no, you need to go over here now, right? And you kind of go this way. So when you had that day where you were able to see the energy of existence, what did you have that experience again, or was it just the one day?
I don't know that I've had anything happen to me that starkly. I mean, that was a pretty like, wow, this is very different kind of a
Yep.
thing. There have been a couple of times in meditation where I felt myself go very deep and feel like a very still presence within myself. And like that's something that kind of seeps out into my daily life a little bit. But I haven't had any sort of like other mind blowing, super explosive moments like that.
Okay. And what did you do with what you learned that day?
Well, I was 20 years old and in college,
Yep.
and was nothing. I mean, on the outside, you know, I think you could look back and say, like, well, okay, your life didn't really change at all. Um, you know, um, I just kind of like continued my course of study and had a girlfriend at the time who is now my wife. Um, and, just lived out the rest of college, and kind of graduated and went about things.
Yeah.
I very much dived into the world.
The
And,
physical world. Yep. I'm
yeah,
with
yeah,
you.
the
Yep.
sort of physical aspect. And, things have kind of moved along. Like I said, I have two kids now and a household,
Yep.
a loving family, but nothing has ever, here's the interesting thing, Michelle, nothing has ever really felt right.
Right.
Um, like I had ideas of what I wanted to do with my life. And I say that in quotes because I can see very clearly that there's something else at work. Um,
Yeah.
and all of these ideas, all of these sort of like mental, like, oh, okay, maybe I'll pursue a career as a therapist, or maybe pursue a career in medicine, or whatever, working
Yep.
in nonprofits with disadvantaged populations or whatever the case may be. None of that has ever really lasted very long in my
Yeah.
mind. I grasp it and I'm like, oh, yes, excited. And then, it kind of fizzles. Um, and I
I
don't
get.
know, can't feel
Yep.
it. I don't know.
Okay. It's awesome. Well, the okay, so I want to start with the really good news because we have those experiences for a reason, right? So, and this is important. I had a number of them through my journey as well, and they're life changing, and yet like I mean the whole wall of my bedroom opened up and I was looking into the soul of the universe, and it was just this, my hand went up and I was like, not right now, right? And it's this knowing that it's going to happen, and it's also the other side of knowing, I'm not really sure, how, when, where that's going to fit into the life that I'm living over here, right? And it's this instinctual awareness in all humans, right? We all have an awareness of our primal roots, right? Why we were created, our soul aspects for existence, like those don't just disappear. but they do become hidden. They get covered up because we're trained to look in different areas. So, instead
Mm.
of feeling, we're trained to think. Yeah. Um, right? Which is a great one. So the good news is, you know, that experience is still waiting to be tapped, right? Which is awesome. You know, and it's important to understand that every one of your experience has also brought you more wisdom. Even even if they don't look spiritual in nature. This is, a lot of people will overlook different aspects of life. Like you understand how to connect with another human to actually create life. Like this is powerful. It's not only powerful, it's understanding that you have a foundational relationship with existence and creation itself. Okay. And this is the part that as humans, we are we're overlooking because we're looking at everything from the way they've told us to look at it, right? You
Mm.
go out, you have sex, you get pregnant, then you go see a doctor, and then, the doctor delivers the baby. And very much of that whole process, the like our essence, our roots has been removed, right? When it's understanding that you come together through connection, and it's a primal connection. And so you have that, but you also have an understanding of relationship with these now. You said you had two children, so you have fundamental relationships with them, but you have a lot more going on as well. And we're going to get into that in a minute. But what what they want me to share before we go further is that feeling of it's like a restlessness, right? It's this restlessness that, nope, not there yet, but I don't really know what there is. So I'm just
Mm.
going to keep living, right? And this is pretty much the limbo that most of humanity is living, right? We're trying to walk this line where, we've been trained to make everything look like we got it all figured out, right? Have all your ducks in a row and do all these things properly, and you'll be so fulfilled and happy and you'll be living your best life. And, as you're going through the motions, you're like, but there's something missing. There's something missing. I don't feel fulfilled, right? And fulfillment is a result of participating in existence itself. And that's so the piece that's really missing for you right now isn't so much the action, because again, humans are taught, like, what can we do? What can we do? What can we do? You're already doing a lot. It's just allowing yourself to open up and see everything from the energetic and universal perspective,
Mm.
which, if you go back to that experience that you had, right, seeing through everything into the energy, that was the foundation of that experience, right? It was this,
Hmm.
Chris, look, there's so much more to everything, and you can't see it because it's not tangible to the human eye. And yet you knew all about it. So they want to take you back to that day because it's the day. Okay, so it's interesting because it's the day that changed your life forever. And the reason it changed your life forever is because all of those awarenesses that you had, those suspicions, it's like, something's off or something doesn't feel quite right. They all got answered in that day. And you were like, there is more.
Mm.
It was like your answer to, and what they're showing me is for 5 years before that day, you kept asking, okay, what else is there? Is this all there is? Even though you may not have remembered yourself asking that, it was a regular question like, okay, yeah, and it's like someone tells you a story and you're like, and like, where's the punchline? Where's the value in this experience of life? That's how it felt, right? It's like
mm,
it felt like the whole pinnacle right at the end, right? It's like it was just not there, right? It's like watching a movie and the whole reason for everything it's just not there. And so it's important that you understand that you had been asking for it on a regular basis. So even though we don't necessarily come through I'm gonna, how do I, it's like sometimes our brains are like, well, I wasn't spiritual then. I didn't know all about the spirituality and what the words. We're universal beings. Whatever we ask for is gonna come. And I know you had some foundation of understanding your existence, like understanding your relationship to existence. And so they want you to understand. And so Jesus is here actually, which is really cool because he, is the founding universal being for compassion, right? Compassion
mm,
is the ability to be present with another human being and not have any expectations and need anything from them, right?
mm,
And the most interesting and impactful part of his mission and what he's here to help humans to remember is our ability to treat ourselves in a way that allows us to continue to grow. Because when we have expectations of ourselves, we can't grow. As
mm,
crazy as that sounds, because it's our expectations that tie us up in knots and trip us and hold us back, right? It's an understanding that existence itself, the way he's wording this is existence itself is part of a bigger plan. It's really interesting because the wording must be more specific to you today because it's not typically wording I would use, and I haven't heard him use this before, so it's very cool.
mm,
So what he's saying is, you know, your your journey right now is specifically about recognition of your place in the world, but it has to come from a place of understanding why you exist and where you fit. Because
mm,
this is really your existential question, so to speak, is what he's saying, like where do I fit, right? And it's understanding that you fit in the life you've created, but now it's time to create something that's a better fit.
mm,
Okay?
mhm,
So it's, a lot of people are like, "Oh, I need to leave my life or I need to leave this dynamic behind and I need to go here and I need to do this." It's not that. It's understanding how you see yourself in relation to existence. So
mm,
for you, okay, it's the way that he wants you to look at it. And there's a few angelics as well. There's different beings. But what they're saying is you have to start by taking stock, okay? And taking stock means going back through your life experiences. So all of the ones that have impacted you, whether it feels like it was a negative or a positive impact, it doesn't matter. But you need to take stock and they want you to reflect on the impact that it made. Okay? And this is the thing that most people don't get right because they don't understand it. Taking stock is recognition on a soul level of your participation in existence and universal existence because everything you learn determines who you're going to be moving forward.
mm,
Right. So if we don't allow ourselves to recognize what we learned, right, then we can't participate. And this is why so much of our mental learning has stalled all of our growth, all of our, well, it's not even stalled the growth, it's blocked our ability to see existence, right?
Mm,
So they want you to go back to basics, primal roots. That's where you need to go. And it's understanding that awareness, that information is hidden inside of each one of your experiences. Okay. And they're like they're showing me a significant amount of fear is going to come up as you start to relive some of these experiences, but your fear is going to be based on, am I going to get it? Am I going to know what the message is when I
mm,
go back? And that's in itself a lesson. That in itself is, why am I scared if I'm going to get it right or not? What
mm,
in me taught me that I may not know what's best for me? Okay, this is huge. Okay, because it's recognition that that is an overhanging belief and you carry it with you all the
mm,
time, right? It's like a woman carrying a purse with her all the time and she has all kinds of stuff in it. It's like you don't ever leave your home without it. This belief that, am I going to be good enough for this, to get this, to, whatever this is that you're thinking, right? But it's, am I good enough? And it's like, gosh, they keep using this word. It's primal pain. Because every time you act that way towards yourself, you're hurting yourself. And we don't, right? So it's interesting the way they're showing me, and the way the words they're using. So it must be very much in alignment with your belief system. It's very cool,
mm,
but it just how it was created. So they want to make sure that the words are very easily understood for you specifically, right?
mhm.
That's how this works. So it's really
Yeah.
cool, but it's understanding that as you continue to treat yourself, it's like with this pain and suffering, with this belief that it's not only that you're not good enough, it's that this one's going to be hard too. It's that you don't believe the creator knew what he was doing when you were created.
Mm,
Do you see how that is a reflection of that belief now?
mhm,
That
mhm.
attitude, right? And when you look at it from that perspective, do you actually believe that?
No.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It seems ridiculous when you look at it like, yeah, I don't think the creator knew what he was doing, right? It seems ridiculous. And yet, that's how you've acted your entire life.
Mm,
Okay. So it's one of those things, like that's what they're saying. And that's why you had that experience of seeing through everything, seeing through the energy, because the simplicity and the truth is always right there. It's hidden just underneath the surface. It's not way, way down. You don't have to dig for it, but you do have to be willing enough to look at the way they're saying it is the absurdity of our human perspectives and perceptions that we've been taught to have.
mm.
And they literally are absurd. Okay?
Yeah.
It it makes sense now, right? Like
Yeah.
it's literally like you've been going through your whole life going, I don't know if I'm good enough. And then you think back and you're like, right, so the creator created me with a very specific intention that he understood I was an integral part of this universe. And so I've been acting in complete contradiction of that.
Yeah. By believing that he had no idea what he was doing.
Right.
Right.
Super
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. So when you when it's it's recognizing all it really is for you right now is a perspective change. But
Mm.
you have to be willing to do it with everything all the time. Okay?
Yeah.
Right. And this is where it gets trickier because we don't want to see it in certain places because it means we have to change, right? It
Mm,
means, and whether it means we have to put effort into creating change or we have to say we were wrong about something,
mm,
you know, or we have to be willing to contribute to our life and existence in a completely different way, right?
mm,
This is what you're dealing with now. And they're using this, it's almost like mentally it would look like an existential crisis, okay?
hmm.
Mentally.
Yeah.
But it's actually just a shift in perspective.
Mm,
And this is where Chris needs to let go of the dramatic side. So that drama where it's like, oh, it's so much bigger than it is. And he just needs to come over to this side, the guy who had that amazing day of seeing through the solid physical aspects of existence into energy because it was so simple. It was so smooth and it was so clear.
hmm.
And that's the whole point, right? Is when it's universal wisdom, it's simple and it's clear and it's instant, right? If it's complicated, it comes from your mind, right?
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
if it's drawn out and it's, as soon as your brain goes, well, I don't really know, your brain's involved, right? Because you
Hmm.
do know. You have answers to every question or anything you could ever want. They've demonstrated that to you over and over and over again throughout your entire life. Whatever you want, you can have, but you have to be willing to participate in a way that allows you to see that. And that's really where you are right now in your journey is being willing to see where and how you're participating. So right now,
Mm.
your word is accountability.
That makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
So anytime you find yourself wanting to say, but, or anytime you see yourself saying, well, it should be this way. So buts and shoulds are awesome because they're literally like flares going up saying, Chris, look here. Look
Mm,
here. You need a perspective shift so that
mm,
you can start to see the truth of who you're being versus how it is in existence.
mm,
Okay. It's important to remember there's only one truth, period. It takes a lot of energy to not see it. Okay. And this is where well, humans exhaust ourselves. Like we are masters at exhausting ourselves literally because we spend most of our time coming up with ways to justify why we can't, won't, shouldn't see truth.
mm.
Okay? There's no such thing as this is my truth and this is your truth. There's only one. And either we're willing to see it or we're not.
Right.
Otherwise, it's just an opinion. And right now, that's what you're dealing with, okay? Is some things you're willing to see most of it. And it's like all go, it's like you're bargaining with the universe. It's really cute. It's like, here, I'll see 90% if you give me the other 10%, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
And then other times it's like, no, I'm only going to see 70 and I'm not changing because it means I have to do too much and you haven't given me enough yet to want to do that,
Mm,
right? Like we try and bargain with the universe, right? And it's awesome because it tells us we're ready to see more. We're just pretending we don't want to yet.
mm,
And that's where the true restlessness is actually coming from. Okay. It's not coming from an inability to see, it's coming from an inability to want to see.
mm,
Okay. Because the truth is, Chris, you have an immense capacity for seeing truth, for feeling it, and for knowing exactly what's going on universally simply through the energy. You're
mm.
so good at it. Um, do you have a daughter?
No, two
T
sons.
two boys.
Hmm.
Did you have it? Oh, maybe it's your wife. No, could be with your wife. There's something. You're very aware of the energy, though. It is with a woman, and you're very aware. It's really cool. Very aware of the energy, and it's funny because I can see you look at her, and it's like you can see the energy in her eyes, and you
Hmm.
know when there's a shift in it, but it's not just the mood. You can feel the shift. And it's funny because your brain will go into, I know her. I know how she is. I know what she wants. I know what to do. I know what not to do.
Hmm.
But they want you to start looking at the bigger picture around those dynamics. Okay. So instead of going from what your mind knows about this person, it's allowing yourself to start to feel the energy of what is being communicated because it's so much more. And what happens when you do that is it's about it's breaking you open, right?
Hmm.
It's trying to it's like breaking open the secrets of the universe. You keep fighting that by saying, no, no, I know what she wants. I know who she's going to be. I know what to expect, right?
Hmm.
So zero compassion when we know what to expect.
Right.
And that's crazy because, you know, on the human side, we've been taught it's important to know what to expect from your partner so that you know who to be for them. And the thing is that when we do that, we support patterns. We support that
Hmm.
person staying the same, and we don't create any space for change, growth, and movement. Okay. So, right
Hmm.
now, what they want you to start to do is when you feel the energy, you will then discover who she needs you to be rather than oh, I know who I need to be, right?
Right.
The
Right.
energy tells you who you need to be because it's also going to tell you what she needs.
Hmm.
It's not about, right? So if you look at it from the perspective of, oh, I know what to expect, that comes from a belief inside of us that we need to protect ourselves,
Hmm.
right? In I need to protect this situation. I need to keep the calm or keep this person happy.
Hmm.
But if you were happy all the time, Chris, you wouldn't be learning anything. So,
Right.
right, right. So it's not being the person who needs to fix everything. It's being the person who's strong enough to allow others to have their joys, their challenges, and make their choices inside of that. So who do
Hmm.
you need to become to allow that to happen, especially in your most intimate relationships right now? Your wife is going to be your strongest teacher for the next 8 to 9 months.
Hmm.
Really, really strong because you have a very strong connection, but you also have a very strong belief system on how each other needs to be there for each other. Whew, that was a
Hmm.
lot of words.
No, perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what you want to do is begin to break that open a little bit. And what that looks like is listening differently, listening with energy, right? Not with your ears, but with the vibration and feeling, okay, so this person just shared this with me. First and foremost, what do they need from me right now?
Hmm.
Do they need love, compassion, respect? What do they need? Right? And then it's being able to say, I hear what you said. And how do they know? Because you're going to deliver words that are either compassion, love, or respect that let them know you heard them.
Hmm.
Okay. And then you tell them why you believe in them. Okay. And then you ask them what they need from you. Because here's the other really cool thing you're going to learn is what people ask for is 99% of the time not what they actually need. It's funny because we live in a society that most people are struggling because they feel like they don't even know how to ask for what they want. But the reality is they don't even know what they actually want, which is more important. They are trying to ask for things that they think they need.
Mm,
And this is why we're so messed up because it's 3 or 4 layers deep, right? That manipulation has gone.
mm,
And so what you and that's actually a huge part of your soul purpose, your reason for being here is unraveling that level of manipulation, especially when it comes to recognizing the significance of our own existence.
mm,
So, this is really important. Recognizing the significance of our own existence. That is what you're meant to specialize in.
mm,
That is your reason for being. And you will start to see it now throughout your whole life. You'll start to see the patterns and where you questioned existence and your own reason for being. But you're also going to start to find that a lot of the people around you have similar
mm,
challenges in their belief system. And so right now, what you want to be doing is learning. Allow yourself to learn as much as you possibly can about this. What is that? What does learning look like? It means participating. When something gets your interest, it's the way they're showing me it's consciously reacting in a way that allows you to grow and learn
mm.
instead of being on autopilot. Okay?
Yep,
And
makes sense.
you're ready for this, Chris, right? Does this make sense?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Hmm.
So what you want to be doing is literally just looking at life from a perspective of where can I learn and who do I need to be? And every time you try and be that person, you're going to know if you nailed it or not because you'll know what's going on inside of you, right? Watch your emotional reactions. You know, ultimately, the art is you'll know when you've nailed it because someone else will be having an existential crisis and you will be as calm as possible and very present. There will be zero judgment in you. There will be zero need to help that person, zero need to change that person, but there'll be a complete willingness and openness to participate should they choose to ask you to.
Mm,
See the difference?
hmm.
Right? I don't have any need to change you. I don't have any need to fix you. I don't believe that you're broken. I don't
Right.
believe that anyone is. And I also don't walk around needing to fix everyone and anyone. My job is if someone comes and asks a question and I believe that I can participate and give, then I will. But I don't also need to every single time. I don't have that in me, right? And the other thing you're going to learn along the way is there are those who say they're ready, and they're not always ready. They're not always ready. In fact, 80 to 90% of the time they're not. Okay? And you're going to learn the difference between someone who says they're ready and someone who's not. That is going to be your next year and a half. Okay? And it will be very awkward and very uncomfortable in so many conversations, experiences, relationships. Okay. I'm like reliving the first 5 years of doing all this work. But so much learning happens, and you won't learn it until you're smack in the middle of those experiences and you go, oh, that's what that feels like. Okay. So I overstepped here, or, I didn't participate ethically. I didn't participate with truth. I participated with one of my expectations. And
Hmm.
so your relationship ultimately you're building your relationship with purity and purity, the entire universe. That's what we've been participating in since December 21st, since the solstice, in 2023. So
Mm,
we have another just under 2 months left of purity, and then we're going to be shifting into the next energy for next year, which is super cool. I don't know what it is yet. They'll share it with me shortly.
Mm, mm,
Um, but it's using purity to your advantage because it's here now. It's been layered in, and mm, it's one of the most powerful energies in existence because it needs nothing, it wants nothing, and it allows for everything to occur, right?
mm,
And that's really what everyone wants. They want everything. And, we live in a world where we want everything, but we don't really want to work for it. But the reason we don't want to work for it, there's a reason because we feel like we need to protect ourselves and keep ourselves safe. And, is it really worth my time and energy, right? We've got this, there's a whole bunch of beliefs that are wrong. And that's your mission is to start picking through them.
mm,
Where are my beliefs off? And you'll know because you're not fulfilled in whatever area you have a question about. Why is this not working for me? If you're not feeling fulfilled, it's because your belief around existence is off. Okay?
mm,
Yeah. So you're going to have fun. You're going to be asking, you know, bigger questions, but they're simpler. And you're going to find that the answers come very quickly and also very simply. So it's making sure your radar is set to clear and simple, right? You're looking for clear and simple. And that's also what you want to set it for communication when you're communicating with other people.
mhm,
Okay. It's
mhm,
really letting yourself recognize that the universe communicates that way for a reason because it's extremely powerful. And as you step into this more powerful expression of who you are, you want to use clear and simple to get there. Okay? So less words, less everything, less thinking, all of those things. It's just simply feeling. And then all the truth can come in. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah, yeah. I I think I resonate especially with the last part because um, I think that part of the ways I've noticed the sort of like not true inner grokking of the awakening or experience that happened to me is because I was always continuing to seek in some subtle way. You know what I mean? And it
Yeah.
would show up. I mean, I would just be shown over and over and over, like pulled toward more conceptualizing or more, as opposed to deepening, which is what happens when I just sit here and allow myself to be in presence, um,
Yes.
which is fundamentally different. I mean, it feels different in the body. So, like,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
it totally
It's like
makes
night
sense to
and
me.
day,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm. Hmm.
But it's cool because you have that. You have that awareness and it's already innate within you. And now it's being willing to follow your instincts over what your mind says and what your mind
Mm.
teaches you. And
Mm.
what they want you to do, and this is going to sound counterintuitive, but less meditation, more participation throughout your life.
Mm.
Okay.
Hmm.
So instead of setting the intention to sit and be in stillness and meditate in a more formal way, they want you to be in that state of being when you're brushing your teeth, when you're,
Yeah.
eating a meal with your family, when
Hmm.
you're running around being a dad, right? Like, you see? So you have it. Now it's time to layer it into the places that matter. And this is
Mm.
the willingness, this is the participation aspect, right? So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it's you're in for a treat. You're in for some really cool experiences. But it's such a slight shift in perspective,
Mm.
which is going to completely change your intention behind how and why you participate in everything in your life.
Mm.
Yeah. So, do you have any questions, Chris?
Well, no, I think, um, I think one of the places that I get the most hung up is this idea of work, the idea of like a career, right? Because I'm of the generation, like mid 30s, mid to late 30s, when we were younger, people were saying, like, go to college, get a degree, it'll be good, you'll be fulfilled. Nobody knows anything. Like, once you become an adult, you're like, wow, that's just a story. Nobody actually knows anything for certain about any of that. Um, but I would be curious. I mean, I have some curiosity around why I can't seem to, like, I have friends who have picked a track for their life in terms of work. Work is only one facet, and it's a complex, multi-layered type of thing. But I've never been the kind of person that was like, okay, yes, this direction is the one direction I'm going to go in, and I just have there's some hang up still around like making a living because everybody has to make a living. Um, and I just don't know, you know,
Yep.
that's my
So
overarching question, I guess.
yeah, I mean the reality is we're living in a physical world, and this physical world is currently based in financial necessity, period. Just the reality. Now that being said, it's understanding and recognizing that when you allow yourself to accept that you're not a one-track person. You're just not. And okay, so here's one of those things that they're talking about. So this is right when it comes back to it, right? You know that you've picked so many different tracks. So now it's looking at, well, why would you expect it to be that way? Okay, because
Mm,
school told you that, and because all
mm,
these people told you that. But the truth is, if it doesn't fit for you, why are you believing it's right for you? Okay.
mm,
So do you see what I mean? Like that's a perfect example of how they want you to start to work through this because what's happening is you're continuously beating yourself up for not being a one-track person, which is defeating your ability to believe in yourself again.
mm,
Okay.
mm, mm,
So then what happens is you get excited about wanting to go in a different direction or wanting to try something. And then you feel guilty and then you feel shame because, oh my gosh, you're going to change your mind again. Or this person's going to be like, what are you thinking? Why are you changing your mind again? So you take all of that and you're like, here, I'm going to wear that when I tell them. I'm going to wear that when I move into this. So you're not going in with purity. You're going in with a whole lot of beliefs stacked on top of shame and guilt and frustration and anger and resentment that you're choosing to carry.
mm,
And the reality is, it doesn't matter what anybody else says because you're coming to the place where you now understand that the world we've been taught to live in is ridiculous because it breeds shame and guilt and frustration and anger and
mm,
resentment. And so this is what they were talking about is being willing to choose to participate in a different way, which means you're going to embrace the fact that your instinct is saying, no, go try this because this isn't fulfilling. We're going to keep looking for what's fulfilling. And instead of supporting that right now, you're carrying all those burdens.
mm,
But when you can allow yourself to go, let's keep going. We're not meant to be here, but we were meant to be here long enough to learn what we needed to learn.
mm,
This is that other aspect where they're saying, look back at your experiences. What did you learn? What did you learn about yourself? What did you learn about existence? What did you learn about humanity by working there? In all the different compartments, right?
mm,
Because when you take stock like that, now you can see the line of wisdom that's weaving and woven through everything you've ever experienced and created. And then you go to the universe. Okay, what next? And they can give you abundance because you're choosing to come from abundance because you're seeing the value in every experience you've had.
mm,
But if you continue to move forward with the guilt and the shame and the resentment and the fear, that's what you're going to create again. Does that make sense?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So it's time to take stock and look
yeah,
at all the awesomeness and then go, okay, so I know this and this and this and this, and I learned this about myself. And it's not about being brutally honest. It's a waste of time to spend any time judging yourself for anything, right? That and you've
Mm,
learned that. You've learned that through that experience that we just went through, right? And we talked about. The reality is you're the best person to advocate for you. And if you're not advocating for you in this universe, then no one can. Because all the universal beings have to support who you're choosing to be. So if you're choosing and you're saying, there's something wrong with me, I don't know why can't get this or I can't do this, then the universe is like, well, we can't give him anything because all we're going to give him is more of what he's doing. So that's what they mean by shifting your perspective, right? Start to see what's awesome about Chris in all of the experiences that Chris has had,
mm,
right? Because then you're going to start to be able to see the patterns. And your mind is really good with patterns, but you have to want to see them. And you
mm.
haven't allowed yourself to go through your life to see them because you are terrified that you're going to find a whole lot of bad stuff, a whole lot of negative things that other people have said, or that you're going to find things that nobody else even knows about yet. So we don't want to bring that to the surface. And the reality is, Chris, you're not going to find that. You're going to find wisdom, you're going to find truth, you're going to find purity, compassion, respect, and you're going to find a whole lot of pretending you are someone other than you are. And it's important that you see that because the moment you see it is the exact moment that you can start to change it.
Mm.
Okay?
Yep.
So go do that. Do that because then you're going to change the pattern and you're going to change the dynamic. And then what will happen is you're going to allow yourself to have the experiences you're meant to. Okay?
Mm.
Yeah. How you feeling?
Good. Yeah, good.
Good.
Yeah,
Lots of information.
I think it's interesting, like so much of it is as you mentioned already, like so much of it is just my own baggage. Um or like expectation or unmet expectation of myself maybe and others.
Yeah.
Um and that rings true for sure. Um so yeah, I mean that's great.
But it's also your, your spark, your willingness to keep going in spite of all those other things is stronger than all those other things.
Hmm.
That's how you're sitting here having this conversation with me today,
Yeah. Hmm.
right? So keep going, right? And every single time you get frustrated or you feel down or you feel guilty or shame or any of those things, that's when you go, no, I'm stronger than the guilt. I'm stronger than the shame. I'm stronger than the fear. Let's do this anyways. Okay? Yeah. You're ready to be in Chris's corner. Okay? And every time you think or feel you're frustrated, or you're alone, or you're worried, your job is to look into the corner and go, oh, no, 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 I'm there in the corner. I'm supporting myself. And your job is to put yourself there to make sure that you are supporting you. Because, when we grow up with a lack of stability and support, and what I mean by stability is a lack of faith in ourselves, right? That's the most important stability there is,
Mm.
period. And, when we grow up in a world that is lacking in that, we stumble and we fall more times than we'd like to admit. And the reality is, you're choosing to change this because the humans that came from you are going to continue for generations. And 50 generations from now, you want them to know who they are. You want them to know why they exist. And you want to create a space where they have the courage to participate in existence and evolution. And
Mm,
you're changing that now, right? It's looking at everything you do from that perspective. Does that make sense?
hmm. Yeah.
You're ready for it.
Yeah. Feels hard, but also like a challenge that is different, because it's not like it is outward, but it's also mostly inward. So that's an
It's yes. It's
it's
gonna
interesting.
what happens on the out, it's like a iceberg,
Hmm.
right? It's like 90% of what's going on, no one else is gonna see. They're gonna see 10%. And your job is not to explain it. Your job is to just simply say, I don't know how this is gonna go, but I'm gonna try it because I know that I have to try it. That's it. But you'll be the first to know when I get it because you're important to me, right? It's being able to use words that are relevant. They're simple. Don't say a whole bunch of words that are unnecessary, right? It's keeping it really, really simple. Yeah. Well, thank you. I loved our conversation. It's so important to what's going on in the world right now, and where humanity is in the bigger picture of evolution and existence and coming from this. We're stepping away from pretending, we don't exist for a bigger purpose and allowing ourselves to finally fully participate in our whole story. So
Hmm.
I thank you. I thank you
Yeah.
for helping us give a little window into that. Your story is wonderful. And yeah, stay in touch and let us know how you're doing.
All right. Thanks, Michelle.
Thanks so much, Chris. Bye now. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this conversation and want to learn more, head on over to michellevickers.com. Join our mailing list to receive new episodes right to your inbox or apply to be a guest on the show. If this episode made you think of someone while you were listening, forward the link onto that person with a little note about why it made you think of them, because the greatest gift you can give another human is to see the beauty and purity of who they truly are. Until next time, stay curious.